Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We don't have quorum this evening, so this is not an official meeting, and it's actually for the edification of council. We will hear from him. He will have his presentation. There are a lot of questions asked over the last year. May not be official, but it's Wednesday, March 30th, 2022. It is 7 p.m. We do not have quorum. I'm not go through all this. But we can get to report. 6.1 is the report of the CAO, replacing recreational infrastructure options. And so this is going to be a very, very open meeting. We'll take pauses through the presentations and get questions and comments from you this evening. So I will hand it over to Mr. Daniel / Mr. Antunes.
Just some housekeeping items. We are YouTube streaming live, so please know that if you get up and speak, that it is being streamed on YouTube. For those at home who couldn't make it. You'll notice that the microphone is fairly loud when we're talking, and that's just so the audio can pick up on all sides. Anyone who does want to make a comment or get up and speak, we ask that you go to the podium, please, and speak clearly and state your name. And again, that's just so our folks at home can hear you and participate as well. So I'll pass it over to Mr. Daniel and go from there.
Thanks, Mr. Antunes. So what got us here this evening is the report that has been circulating for about a week now. We have Mr. Michael Pastori, the lead architect from IDEA Architects in Sault Ste. Marie, who was fundamental in a lot of research that went into this. The staff report is trying to give as much information to council and public simultaneously so we can understand up to this point. More recently, what prompted this was we had a hope that looking at different building types would save us some money in the absence of any real large grants. There was a tent structure, we call it, that they manufactured there, Sprung, that's with a plastic roof that's giving it not enough credit. It's a little bit stronger than that, but that's one scenario. And a prefab, pre-engineered, hard-walled type of buildings. So we had hoped that looking at different type of building types, we might be able to save on the capital costs, but we do want to just rely on salespeople from these firms. So we hired Mr. Pastori to do some real deep dive, fundamental review of the pros and cons of the various building types compared to the traditional custom design build. So that's part of what we're here for. We also, since council needs to give us some direction, some fundamental decisions on the state of our current facilities, what we're planning for in the future, we tried to paint a picture to give as much detail as we could about the capital maintenance costs of the current arena pool. We have here this evening in the report on the poster boards, the capital costs of the three types of buildings, so 4 traditional, Sprung, and the 2, when we use the term home covers, steel can, those are manufacturers, but they're basically pre-engineered, prefabricated hard buildings. They all unfortunately come in very, very cheap, so we're not looking at saving a lot of money based on pre-engineered prefab. And in fact, in the long-term operating costs of these buildings, it turns out that some of the maybe modest front-end savings will disappear in the long run. So we tried to paint that picture. We explained what the debt financing costs would be, the pressure on the budget levy based on the debt financing of the various components. When we had the first sticker shock on the capital, we decided, well, what if we just did one building at a time and stripped it right down to arena and pool, maybe at different sites, just to get our heads around that. So we tried to paint those pictures as well in the report. We have the demolition costs of the pool and the arena. If we're going to go into a new build, we're going to need to do something with the old facilities. So we put that in there as well. And we've tried to provide as much detail as possible to the public and to council. And that's what's laid out in the report. We would still, not this evening. This evening is mostly to inform and educate the public. get some feedback from the public. And then at some point in the very near future, we're going to be talking with the full quorum of council to try to get some direction as to where to go from here. And probably with that, we'll hand over to Mr. Castori to walk us through a bit some of the concepts that he researched for us. And then we'll leave it open to public input, as Mr. Antunes said, just now's your chance. Also, doesn't have to be only here, the weather is working against us. We are YouTubing live this meeting. It will be on the website probably sometime tomorrow as soon as we can get it linked and uploaded. And we are welcoming comments, anytime after the fact. There are added physical sheets for those who are here, but you can email us at any time at cao@lala.ca or edo@lala.ca or contact your counselors. That's what we're here for, is to get feedback when council will eventually be making some bigger picture decisions.
Franco, are you going with this?
I'm here, is that Steve or Dan? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Am I able to share my screen, Steve? Do you have it?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So I presume I'm up here. I only got a portion of what Dan was talking about.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, cool. Okay, can you see the title of this short presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I won't turn on my camera just because I think it may impact the speed and quality of the information I have. I guess I was asked this evening just to take you through the highlights of the latest study that was conducted on
Franco, did you freeze? You can see Franco fell off the call. He's probably talking to himself, not realizing that his connection is dropped.
Okay. There's one little piece that I forgot to mention in the report is we have a mandate to work with the current pool infrastructure. When we failed at getting big grants in 2019, the Ford government right around that time realized that they were horribly oversubscribed. There was $10 million of applications for $1 billion of funding. So all of a sudden, lots of renovation grants started to appear. They were not there in 2019 when they had to spend $1 million on the legal roof. They became available later on. So we took advantage of that. We do have $500,000 from the NHSC to go towards approximately $900,000 infrastructure into the current pool. So as we're trying to maximize that grant, we've been hiring other consultants consultants on the current infrastructure pool, and we were somewhat surprised by the fact that one of them suggested the pool itself, the bowl, is quite well built. It was built at a time when they built things right. It's 18 inches of poured concrete. It's not going anywhere. So we know the roof was okay because we studied it to death in 2019. And the walls, so the roof, the walls, the pool itself are very well built and seem to be sound. There's lots of other challenges on the innards, I call them, so we're doing what we can to maximize that current grant. So we explored that a little bit further to see if we don't end up with a new pool or we have to phase into the pool, how much we need to spend on the current pool to eke out more time. And it looks like we're gonna need to spend more than 900,000, but for maybe two and a quarter, we could get another 15 years out of the pool. So that was surprising to us, and it's on the table as another consideration, trying to do the best research we can to help council make informed decisions. So that's still being explored to clarify how far we'll go with the 900,000 and what else needs to come. But it's something else to consider council.
Is that, no, whatever, just one interruption,
All right,
sorry.
well, I'm good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Franco, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened and how far did I get before the system dropped?
I think I heard good evening, my name is Franco.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to avoid slipping to the automatic slide show, and hopefully you can see my screen, and I think that may have been the cause of that technical glitch. So if you guys can see the screen, I will work this way. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, right now we're just seeing the Zoom screen, so I don't know if you want to share.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Okay, just give me a second. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was just into describing where we've been on this project. Began in 2019 and progressed through into 2020 as the project scoping analysis, whereby we were looking at a hub that contained, more programming than today's version does. So at the time, Caroline Rankin Gymnasium, community room, pool, and arena. We took the time to meet with user groups to develop that program and develop building designs and more precise site analysis and ultimately capital construction costs. At the end of that study, we essentially focused in on a project that looked at, as a base project, looked at the arena and the pool facility and moving forward as opposed to the other components and thinking about those as future additions and not necessarily the first phase or stage of the project. And the project was developed as a conventional building type, meaning that you can see a picture of a similar building type where the structure and the building envelope were essentially custom made. And the reason, one would consider a custom structure for a facility like this is because it's so large and it has lots of a large footprint and a large roof area. But now that the project, moving forward has been pared down to its base, which is the pool and the arena, you can begin to look at alternate building types. So this study here that we just completed is essentially a comparative analysis considering the use of alternate building types and potentially even less gross floor area, given that it's only those two components and it's a different configuration that will be studied, and additional phasing. So if the capital isn't there to develop both the arena and the aquatic center, then we would develop the strategy in this study to allow one of them to advance or the other. So the building type options we've looked at are the tensile fabric structure, the pre-engineered frameless building, and the pre-engineered frame building. I'll describe those in more detail as we move through this. As far as the programming options go, we essentially began this study by, and we were sort of, the mandate was that we were given was to continue to look at a community center. In other words, programming that we looked at in the previous studies and consulted with user groups, where this facility is more than just an arena or just a pool. It has community rooms. It has more amenities to serve the community, like a walking track and multi-purpose rooms that can be used for fitness, general fitness, etc. But, again, affordability being the issue, we've also taken the time as part of this study to look at some basic programming. In other words, if this project were just an arena and a pool, what would that mean in terms of cost and design? So I'll review that with you as well. And then, as I said, we've looked at this as two separate phases. So we've sort of costed and analyzed them as independent projects that can be linked or combined together to make one larger facility over time. But the immediate priority is the arena. So the costs and the study reflect the arena moving before the aquatic center. So just want to articulate, I'll take you through the details of the three different building types, but what really sets these apart, what makes them different, is the building envelope and superstructure. So that's a very small component of the overall project. In other words, the building envelope is the skin of the building, the thermal exterior walls, interior liner or skin of the building, including the superstructure, which is the frame that supports the building. When we study these alternate types, that's really the only difference. Now, recognizing there may be collateral impact to the design, which may translate into other cost savings or reverse additions in terms of cost. It's important to recognize that you're not, it's just looking at alternate building types is not the savior of the project from the perspective of capital cost investment. So we'll understand that a little bit more clearly as I move through this. So the first type, and many of you may know this building type, it's typically used for storage as a storage facility. It's temporary, considered to be temporary building because it is a fabric, a tensile fabric building. It's easy to take apart and relocate. So it has, great advantages in terms of moving and reusing it. However, this is a community center, so I'm not sure how compatible those benefits will be with your project. It's an aluminum or steel structural frame that clear spans the entire width of the large open space, as you can see in the small picture below. You would typically, in a situation where you have a second floor in one of these buildings, have to place this on top of a masonry or concrete wall to give you greater lift or height inside the building so that you can achieve that second floor. The other benefit of placing it on a knee wall would be for durability. As you can see, the perimeter of the building is just fabric, so depending on where and the type of exposure it has to public and or et cetera, you may be concerned about its ultimate long-term durability. It's easy to rip into that one of these buildings. The building envelope involves two layers of basically a polyester tension membrane with insulation sandwiched in the middle. And that's necessary in Northern Ontario in order to meet the building codes and energy codes. The profile resembles a tent. Very important to understand the structural capacity of that aluminum frame is limited to supporting some basic elements or components like ductwork, lighting, or piping. It cannot support extraordinary loads like rooftop equipment or mechanical electrical equipment, particularly second floor assemblies, mezzanine platforms, walking tracks. Those, if they were to be constructed as part of a tent fabric building, they would have to have their own independent structures to support them. So therefore, one of the collateral impact of this is that although you save money on the building envelope and superstructure, you have to spend extra money on supporting these second floor elements, which could offset the savings that you achieve by going to the building space. The rooftop equipment generally is placed on the ground one side of the building in order to find place for them. The upper floor levels again must have their own independent structural system, and these projects or these buildings have 25 to 30 year life cycle, and they can be reskinned after that. So the warranty is 25 years. However, we've seen these buildings go as long as 30 years. And then they do get reskinned, but it's a membrane that gets placed on top of the existing building membrane. And then ultimately, the second time around, you would have to replace the system. So these are just pictures of applications that I described. You can see in these pictures that the walking track, for example, in this picture has its own independent structure to support that walking track. That the building has to be lifted in order to give you that clearance on the ground floor and on the second floor as well. Second floor spaces, like you see here at the end, are supported independently and within the overall structure. So there's extra construction that happens with them. Nonetheless, the overall building superstructure, building envelope is slightly less expensive. They don't perform as well from a thermal perspective, and that has an impact on the operating cost of the building. So just a few sort of common, features associated with this design as we worked it out. We've been working directly with manufacturers and laying these out and thinking about how we can be effectively used. So in this case, on the right-hand side of the floor plan, you see the arena. The arena comes with, a number of support spaces like the lobby, a concession, and change rooms, dressing rooms for the referees, and your refrigeration room. In the case of these building types, because their span is only 130 feet wide, all of those functions have to be placed on the end of the building. And generally, they can be placed within, let's say, the fabric structure. However, because this is fairly permanent and very expensive infrastructure that you're building down here, you typically would want to place that in a more conventional building type, so that has longer life cycle, just to protect that infrastructure. And in addition, if you're thinking of connecting onto the building, it's much easier to connect to a piece that's built in a conventional manner rather than it is to extend. As you can see, the width of phase 2, the pool, is not the same as the width of the arena, so it's much easier to connect the two ends into a conventional, call it end piece. That makes it much more efficient to construct. So this would be the only building option type that requires a conventional piece in between the two, call it arena and pool space. As mentioned, they would require a knee wall around the perimeter in order to enable that second floor. The building results in a larger gross floor area than you would see in a conventional or in the other alternate building type, simply because of the rounded end. So it's hard to push some of the functions towards the end because of the slope and the headroom that exists on the end of these buildings. So generally what happens is you end up with a little extra floor area on the end of the two spaces that can be used for storage, but it does result in a little bit more gross floor area, including, and we're not showing it in the plan here, but if you were to include a second floor walking track, this walking track would require 4 stairs, one at each corner. So 2 stairs or exit stairs are captured within the conventional build. The other 2 would exist on the far end of that tent structure, but in conventional towers that would connect into and provide exiting for that second floor track. So that creates a little bit of extra floor area. I mentioned the dressing rooms are located at the end. That has two disadvantages. One is it's not as efficiently located to access the ice, particularly for OADA or accessible barrier-free design. It's more beneficial to come directly onto the ice because there's special surfaces that are placed on the ground. The other is that it eliminates the ability to have full viewing of the arena space from the ground floor level. The lobby area gets condensed into a smaller quarter because those change rooms and refrigeration room are placed at the end of the arena. That's a bit different than you'll see in the other 2 options. Okay, so second building type is a pre-eng frameless building. So this is a pre-engineered building that has corrugated load-bearing walls around the perimeter. So there's no point loads. It's not a frame system. It's essentially the entire wall is load-bearing, carries the weight of the roof. And you can see that there are prefabricated heavy gauge trusses that will span the entire width of the large space to create a clear span over that area. These are prefabricated. They come with sides that are assembled quite quickly. The building envelope consists of corrugated sheet steel with a metal liner on the interior and narrow fiber insulation within the walls, and as well the corrugated, the truss or the roof has corrugated steel on top and bottom with blown-in insulation, so it's much like an attic space. This building type has the structural capacity to support the same as a conventional building. So all second floor levels or components can be supported off the load-bearing wall system. The upper level supported by the same load-bearing walls. It does have a conventional foundation, which is beneficial, particularly because if you have poor soil conditions, you're distributing loads along the length of the entire length of that strict foundation, whereas in frame buildings or in the tent building, they'll have point loads that will require pure foundations. The life cycle for these buildings is typically 50 years. And you can see pictures here of the assembly, where the insulation lies between the walls and in the attic. This is a picture of the finished arena that was constructed with this building. And you can see it provides the ceiling. It's a bit different than a pre-engineered frame building because of the ceiling, so you get better light reflectance and a little bit higher durability within these types of buildings. This picture you see on the bottom right is one of our buildings for facility outside of Ottawa in Limoges, and that's the state of construction as of this week. But this is a great picture because it shows you the type of and volume of building that a frameless would result in. And you can see that there are openings created along the side for smaller buildings to be attached to it. In your case, you would continue to add on to the end if the pool were to be a second phase. So the third pre-eng or alternate building type is the pre-eng frame building, and the difference with this one is that difference from the conventional is that the structural system itself is prefabricated and they come in large frames that they show up on site as large frames, and They're erected, as I mentioned, they have pier foundations at the base, and they use a gird system that is applied to the exterior, and that gird holds the exterior wall assembly. In many cases, we use insulated metal panels. It's a sandwich panel that just goes up and tilts up and gets connected to that gird. And likewise, you can use a similar panel on the roof or an assembly of corrugated metal, steel, and liner panel with insulation sandwiched inside. So this is a very effective building type. There's many manufacturers that provide this, and the price point is fairly good. And again, it has the structural capacity to support the same as a conventional building, so it can support second floor element. Its life cycle is 50 years plus as well. The only thing you have to consider when using this building type is that the frames do get rather wide at the base or at the second floor. So the building has to become slightly wider in order to accommodate the floor space that's required along the length of the building. So it may impact the walking track, for example. It would have to be a little bit wider to compensate for the thickness of those frames. This is a picture of a finished arena with those frames, which are you've all been in something similar. So the floor plan for the frameless and frame would be identical, save except for the width that I just talked about because of those frames. But what makes this different than the tent structure is that the change rooms and washrooms could be placed along the side. You have the ability to achieve greater clear spans with both of those building types, and therefore, you can also create storage. You have a corridor with storage on underneath bleachers on one side and changers on the other. What that does is create more opportunity for viewing into the arena from your public lobby area. So in terms of, I'm just going to flip over to the what makes a community center relative or versus the basic arena and pool that I described earlier. So for your project, everything you see on the left here would be consistent in both basic and community program, and that is this project contains a single NHL ice pad with 750 seat spectator viewing, 5 player dress rooms, 2 referee change rooms, ice resurfacing, plant room, first aid room. The pool is a 6-lane, 25-meter pool, has the therapy, leisure, and children's pool on the pool deck as well. There's approximately 250 seat viewing located at level 2 of the pool area. It does contain male, female, family change rooms, pool and men reception office, lifeguard, staff viewing, control center, and obviously the pool filtration and equipment room. The stuff you see on the right here is what distinguishes, I guess, the community center in this case from the basic, and that is that it contains a walking track, two large multi-purpose rooms that are on level 2, 2 small meeting rooms, concession and kitchenette surgery to service the main floor lobby as well as the second floor multi-purpose rooms. As a pro shop, a public lobby, both on level 1 and level 2, as male, female public washrooms and a universal washroom located on 2 floor levels. Washrooms are a function of occupant load, so the bigger your building, the more washrooms you need. Staff washrooms, it has elevator with 2 stops, and there are 4 stairwells as I described earlier, and then your mechanical, electrical room, storage, and janitor room. So the community center that we've been looking at all along, but it applied to, I guess, these alternate building options, translates to buildings that range between 65 to 73,000 square feet. We've been asked to look at, a more basic project that has a more favorable capital cost. So the lines here that I've highlighted are what would be removed or what would change between the basic arena and the community center project. So your seating will likely go down to 450 seats in the main arena, simply because 750 seats result in a second floor, the way the code works and how you have to exit bleachers. And then that would require stairs and elevators, et cetera. So you'd likely be in the 450, 500 seats. I mean, that needs to be studied a little bit more closely, but that's a guess based on experience. The pool would lose its spectator viewing, level 2 spectator viewing. What we've essentially done is remove the second floor to make this a basic project. So the community center, you'd lose the walking track, you would lose the large multi-purpose rooms and the small meeting rooms. You would lose the kitchenette servery on level 2. You'd still have a concession on level 1. We've eliminated the pro shop. The public lobby would be eliminated at level 2. The mail, all the washrooms would be reduced accordingly to building size. It would still contain staff washrooms, but you would lose the elevators, the stairwells, and the mechanical, electrical storage general rooms would be sized accordingly to the new building size. So what that translates to in terms of overall capital costs, and this is a comparative analysis amongst the various building options. You see that the conventional building, now this has been updated to $2022. So there's been, as you may be aware, significant escalation in the marketplace for construction projects. So this is, and we have historical data because we're currently designing and constructing a number of these buildings. So the conventional building was adjusted accordingly to reflect this size studied in 2021, but also to incorporate the escalation that's occurred. So it's a $29.2 million bill for the whole project. You can see that the sprung structure is approximately 28.6, so there's not much of a savings. And that's primarily because of the collateral impact that that building type has on the baseline, which is the conventional building. So in terms of area, in terms of structure, mechanical, electrical finishes, and operating costs will offset against the expected savings that you would achieve by going to that type of structure. What these numbers represent is before you take into consideration those collateral impacts, that building envelope and superstructure is essentially 20% less expensive than the baseline, which is the conventional building. However, that 20% disappears quickly once you take into consideration those collateral impacts. And we've studied that quite closely. So the Honko, which is the frameless building type, that's slightly more expensive because the actual building envelope and superstructure for that building type is 15% more expensive than a conventional build. It has certain inherent advantages to it, therefore is a bit more expensive. The pre-engineered building is 10% less expensive when you purchase it. The collateral impacts are actually quite few, and therefore, a project of $28.7 million. So it happens to be the cheapest project building type if you were to consider a community center for a building. So we've actually broken up the cost, the individual costs of the arena and the pool component in the community center version, and they are between 17.5 to 18.5 for the arena. Again, that's the community center, so it would contain the multi-purpose rooms and the walking track as well. And the pool component would be between 10 and 10.5 to 11.5. If we were to look at the basic project, again, having increased the value of the project to $2022, you can see that there are less collateral impacts associated with the tent structure simply because we're not building the second floor. So we don't have the independent structure, and we have a lot less floor area that we can achieve. So you do realize a little bit more of the savings that are provided through that tent structure. However, it's down to 22.5 versus 23.6, so it's still not considerable. but it is a savings. It is the cheapest of the three building options if you're considering the basic, with the pre-engineered frameless or frames being the second, and then the frameless being the third, or the most expensive. Sorry. So again, if we were to isolate the cost for the arena, it's between $14 and $15 million in initial investment if you were proceeding with the basic, and for the pool to add it on, then the second phase would be between $9 to $10 million. So I got one more slide, and that to talk a little bit about the long-term operating maintenance life cycle cost. So this is a great graphic because it represents, you know, the reality of building that we face, and or you as an owner would face, that there is a capital cost, and you know, we always struggle with the availability of capital for a project. However, you know, the less capital you put in, the more potential operating maintenance and life cycle costs you'll have over the long term. So you really should look at the investments into a project by considering, you know, all of those things, not just capital costs. So this iceberg, you know, the portion of the iceberg that lies above the water and represents your capital cost, and the rest of the iceberg below the water, you know, 2/3 of or more of that mass is your operating and life cycle cost over time. We've taken some time as part of the study to evaluate those other costs. So facility O&M, what we looked at were your basic facility O&M costs, which are utility costs, groundskeeping, snow removal, custodial, preventative maintenance supplies. We haven't looked at staffing costs to run a facility. This information is available by looking at, you know, other municipalities. They do have publicly available, you know, operating costs for their community centers or arenas, and so we've assembled that data so that we have a fairly good, you know, understanding of what they are, recognizing this is high level. So when you look at these graphs here, you can see capital cost is the first line, facility O&M, life cycle, and a total. And the columns represent conventional and the three alternate building types. And the first four columns represent 25 years, and the second four columns represent 30 years. So when you add up the cost associated with the capital, the operating, the maintenance, and the life cycle, and there is no life cycle in 25 years on any of these projects. Essentially, you know, these buildings will last 25 years with very little investment, reinvestment or recapitalization outside of operating and maintenance. But when you get to year 30, you do have needs to start to replace some systems. In Sprung, the case of Sprung, you would have to reskin the building, and we've included the cost to re-roof or, you know, new building, roof membrane on the conventional build, because they're typically 25 years as well. So when you add up the three, you can see how much you can expect to spend, you know, considering all three over a 25 to 30 year period. You can see that these are measured against the conventional that, so the way to read that is that the Sprung would be approximately $3.4 million more expensive than the conventional over a 25-year period, and 4.2 over a 30-year period. So if they're red, that means they're more expensive to operate than the conventional, whereas when you see the green, they're actually less expensive. So at 30 years, you see the break even there, and the two are at parity somewhere between 25 and 30 years, and that's for the pre-engineered framework building or frame building. So the graph below represents the basic arena pool building. We've just translated the same data onto those capital costs, obviously, in the smaller areas. And essentially this reflects your investment over 25 to 30 years. That's the end of my slide. I hope it provides you with the information you need. And I'm certainly willing to answer any questions.
Any question?
I would like to buy that slide presentation, what we have in our package.
Open for questions, anyone have any questions?
I just want to know if that will be made available to us as well, because it is different.
Something that should be attached to the website. Franco?
Franco? Franco?
Yeah,
Are you able to send a copy of that slide deck to us?
absolutely. And I trust you have a copy of the report, this report as well.
Yes, that was included in the agenda.
Right, so this report together with that slideshow will, I'll send this, right after this meeting, and, it's really just a high level or summary of what's contained within that report that we issued.
Okay, sir, if there's any questions from council here to ask Mike while he's on. Thank you, Franco, and I see is there any questions for Franco from the community here this evening?
I got a question there. Can you go to the microphone just so Franco can get me on this one? So. Franco? Franco?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's a solid speaker in the mic.
Okay. My name is Mike LaHaye. What I want to know is the seating arrangement. What kind of seats are we looking at? Because we're going to go back to what we have in the Centennial Arena. That's very uncomfortable, especially when you see your population and all that here in LA Lake. How much more would it cost to upgrade to seats where you can come in and have an individual seat? If you buy a ticket, you're allocated to seat 109 or whatever. Rather than have kids running behind you, slump and slush all over the seats.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of those items that's typically debated quite heavily during the design of a project like this. And we haven't. There's no commitment here to any one way or the other. I think it'll all depend on what you as a community would like to see. We typically always start out with individual seats, but they're more typically used in a spectator facility. And if you're getting into that 750 to 1,000 seat capacity, you may want to consider that for sure, particularly if you're generating revenue. It'll be people will see the benefit of having their own individual seat, but they are much more expensive, to answer your question, than if you were to provide plank seating as you see on the screen. We've just finished a double pad, and it has about 1,000 seat capacity. Started off with the individual seats, but due to cost, we've had to remove them and install planks, as you see here. So I think the ultimate, answer will be, if you can afford it, you should consider it, and you should weigh, the benefit.
Thank you, Franco.
Does anyone else have a question for Franco?
I'm not sure if it's for Franco. How many seats does our arena have now?
Because it's plank seating, I've heard different numbers, I believe 1,500. Should follow my own rules and actually talking to Mike. I've heard different numbers, but from my understanding, one of the last numbers I heard was 1,500 capacity. I came up when we spoke about COVID numbers and seating capacity. Unless someone knows something different, that's a number I was able to understand.
I think that's capacity, not seating. The last I remember, the seating was around the area of 600, the capacity in the building was around 1,500. We don't want to lose any of that. So.
we just have another question coming up.
Frank, good evening, it's Mike Collins, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Like,
Given the demographics of our community and the ability to see young and old, very young and very old, in a safe and proper manner, what do you give in your recommendation, you should use more towards the more verbal individual speaking, or the approach to plan?
well, that's a good question. You know, my opinion is that it depends what your ultimate sort of objective is. Like, plank seating will give you more flexibility and potentially greater capacity. Individual seats tend to require more space, more area. So to achieve 750 seats in planks will require less space, less construction than using individual seats. But individual seats are, if you're paying for an event and if you link it into sort of the whole business case, the value you're providing for the dollar you're obtaining, there might be a tipping point there where you can justify, an individual seat. From a safety and security point of view, I have never experienced, a direct correlation between the two. I think they're equal when it comes to that aspect of design.
Would you include cost differential for that?
I did not, and I can definitely provide it to you,
That
for
would be
sure.
That would be very helpful, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
Anybody more questions for Franco? Okay, Steve, thank you, Franco, for your presentation. I don't know if you can hear me, but very
You're
great.
very welcome.
You have a good evening.
I'm available at your discretion, and thanks everybody. And I will send more information after the meeting.
Okay, Franco, just sorry, one other quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Franco, it's Councilor Patrick. Just in your cost calculations for excavation and so forth, did you receive the borehole testing quantities to find out where the bedrock is on that property to position the buildings? Because it's not in this report either, either one, where it's like this. Yeah.
Yes, so Tulloch Engineering is the civil engineer on the project, and they did detailed analysis of the site. And that information is contained within that report. And you can see they produced a cost estimate. And they, if I'm not mistaken, did do a geotechnical analysis of the existing site. And we're all aware that bedrock is fairly high on this site. It is a site that is tricky when it comes to cut and fill. And you can see here, you can see my screen that we looked at the cutting and filling profile to accommodate this project. So yes, it would have been reflected in the costing for sure.
So, follow up. So those charts and graphs that you have are soil elevations, that's current elevation. That we don't have anything in the report that shows where the bedrock is. The issue is you're putting a pool at one end and an arena at the other on a piece of land that has a 40 to 50 foot slope.
I'm sorry I didn't get all of that question. However, I can tell you that I'd have to defer answering that and rely on Tulloch Engineering to provide you more detail. If you guys can maybe put some of those questions in writing, and Steve can email them to us, we can certainly provide you with answers to them.
All right, Franco, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you go. I'll check down this call.
Excellent, thank you, everybody, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Franco.
Bye.
Back to the big questions from you. Again, any questions, comments? Get you, you need to get up your mic anymore. Can see you. Yeah. Oh, yes, so that you two can hear you.
I can't hear anybody.
Oh, there we go. Got talking a little bit, maybe with it. So I might have a combination of questions and different ideas on where, again, this personal view, not the community's view, but I'm happy to see the people that are here. I'm a little bit surprised that there's not 200 or 300 people here, because this is a huge decision that the city's making here. At 30 million, 35, 37. It's a huge decision, and I'm a little bit surprised that there's not more public here. But anyway, from what I know, first of all, my name is Dave Burnett. I've been born and raised in Night Lake, going on almost 60 years in the plumbing and heating industry. I just finished retiring for about a year now. I know I'm not an expert, but I do know and follow a lot of what this community is built on and what has worked and what hasn't worked. From what I recall, this hub has been studied for 8 to 10 years now. Back when I believe the PC government was still in power and Fred Rothfuss was the CEO, I believe, there was this sudden money that was out there, and they said, you know, get shovel ready, get going, got all this stuff. I think we spent $500,000 on testing, soil samples. I believe there's another set of full drawings already done on this project. $500,000. Now, if you include the buying of that property at the old Alga Mall site at $1 million, and where we're at with whatever this project has been, I believe we're close to $2 million. Am I off? Probably pretty close. We have, not me personally, but the city has asked for funding through different governments for this project, off and on, federally, provincially, and we've been turned down. It's time to move on. I wish we could get a hub. I wish we could get all this. If the mines were here and if we had an industry here, I believe it would be a much different story. I don't see us getting $30 million in today's dollars. And as you know, with COVID prices going the way they are, what you see on paper here, trust me, it's not going to be that. It's going to be a lot higher. It's going to be 35, 37. Prices are going through the roof and nobody can control it, no matter what those numbers are. If we get shovel ready in 18 months, that's going to go up 20% easily. We have beaten this thing to death, and now if tomorrow the government comes and says, here's some money to get this project going, different story. I would wish we can get a hub. It would be ideal. We deserve it. I don't think we can afford it. We don't have the capacity to do that at this point in time. The taxation has been talked about funding it ourselves. There's numbers of 25 or 30-year financing options and whatnot. Somebody had said there's a $300 per household hit that we would take. That's on the residential side, if that's accurate. What about the commercial side that gets a hit on that? And all the building owners, the PPG buildings, which are the buildings that, all the building owners, everybody that's involved. Retirement is one of them too, yes. But everybody would get a huge hit. I don't know, maybe it's this whole project has to go on the election ballot coming up for our community come October. Maybe that's the answer. These costs are going up, like I said. I do believe that we should maybe rehash this, and yes, the arena needs to be rebuilt. The arena was built in as you know, people that have been here long enough, it was an outdoor rink. And it was put together by volunteers, arena fund committee, people have passed away, people are still around. The mines are still there, and they did a really good job with it. Believe it or not, that front lobby, my dad, my brother, and our family, we did work in there. That front lobby is in good shape. It's salvageable, but you can't build in front of it, unfortunately. So the arena, I would suggest we start with, there are other little scenarios in this mix of $15 million, but again, that's gonna climb. There's no two ways about it. Build the arena, because that's the more dire straight one, it's the one that needs to be replaced. Get that done, and I almost can guarantee you that that's a smaller ask on the government side, that we probably could get some funding for that, instead of the big ask on 30 million. The pool. The pool is very much like this building here, the Collins Hall that we're standing in. One of the oldest buildings in Lake Lake, built in 1957. It was a gift to Lake Lake. The building is sound. The city has spent money on it, and in a good way. But like everything else, the mechanicals need to be replaced. The electrical needs to be replaced. It's happening right now. There's a new boiler going in. My dad put that ductwork in, it's still sitting here. The shell is good, but over time, we need to change the inside. The pool in that study is proven to be good. It's a well-built pool. It's good. There's been a lot of money spent on it. There's going to be almost $1 million spent on it this summer between boiler repairs and diatrons and whatnot. I've worked in the pool. It needs work, but it's mechanical and electrical. It can be done for roughly $3 million. Again, that's my opinion. I don't know, we have, and even at council meetings, there's some councilors that suggest the same thing. It's back and forth, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. We need to move on. Unless funding can come, I don't think we should do this alone. We need partners to move forward with this. Valley Lake cannot afford to do this by ourselves. The other point is, as we just mentioned in the last question by Councilor Patrick, that property where the mall is, that's going to be a tough road to build on, big time. Do you remember how the mall was built? It was built in stages like this, up, and up, and up. You know why? It's bedrock. It's very hard to make that all flat. It's going to cost us a fortune to get that property down to a flat surface. Anyway, that's it. It wasn't more questions to council, it was more opinion and comments. And I believe some other people have probably the same views or other views or other ideas. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's what we're looking for, is the public input this evening. One way or another, as you mentioned, maybe the best opportunity for us is to do a phased in approach. And that's why we asked you to be here this evening. I wish there was a packed house. We look at doing a phased in approach, and whether that we can get another 10 years over the pool or so, and start with an arena. We rehash the site plan. We don't know. We need to hear from you. The reality is, you're right. This has been something ongoing for years. The community was approved for funding back in 2008. It was withdrawn.
32 million.
We were approved for funding again with the Liberal government in 2018. That was withdrawn again immediately. Right now, we're looking at a whole bunch of tiny little purses of money. Even with all those little tiny purses of money, it might equal $5-6 million. We don't even know if we can obtain that. So we know that the areas of our streets, and I'm glad that you pointed this out. We need to do something one way or another. We can't just keep talking about it for years. 6 years ago, the whole Taj Mahal was $38 million. Now we've cut it in half, and we're looking at $30 million again, plus site prep costs, no matter where we put it. So, thank you again for your comments, and hopefully council will be able to make a hard decision in the next week or so before we go and see the government once again. Rick.
Hi, Rick.
So, okay, you're talking about the phased in program, which to me still means that we're gonna need a lot of property, a big area, which goes back to 151 Ontario, which I totally disagree with building a rec hub. First of all, I disagree with building a rec hub. I don't think we can afford it again unless we get support from the governments to help us out with it. We definitely need an arena. We need a downscale this thing to something we can afford and that we need. It's beautiful to say we have the Taj Mahal, but we can't afford the Taj Mahal. And I don't think we really need the Taj Mahal. We need an arena, we need our recreation, we need a swimming pool. So the phasing in thing, I don't know if that's the right approach to take. Everybody's saying, from the reports, I've read it 5 times, the one I printed it off over the weekend, and I've read it and read it and read it. I asked questions this afternoon. Our pool is sound. Maybe we need to put a little addition on it to get better dressing rooms. And in the future, we need to concentrate on getting the pool functional so that it serves our needs for right now. It has served them since 1976 when it was built. And it will continue to serve them with some maintenance. Even if you build a brand new pool and a brand new everything, if you don't maintain it, you're not getting 30 years out of it. I'll tell you that right now. Rio Den Arena is a prime example. We have a building that was done in 76 that we are going to demolish because the city has not spent a dime on maintenance. The problems with the pool, you're going to have these same problems with this rec hub in 30 years. You're going to have the same issues. So we're going to tear all that down and build another pool? No. We're going to fix them because we're going to stay on top of our maintenance schedule. This is something that the city needs to implement in all our buildings. And I think you guys have been starting on it because I watch all council meetings. And you seem to be taking a proactive on this. And it's about time. Thank you. I think we should just build an arena. I talked to Dan this afternoon about, was there any site things done on the original deal that was going to be by the arena? What is that property going to cost to build an arena on? Let's save our pool and do something we can actually afford instead of this pipe dream. Nobody is giving us $50 million. And by the time this big thing is done, even with adding on and doing this and doing that, we are going to be minimum $40 million. That site is going to cost us a fortune to get ready. I think we need to sell that site at a loss because it's not worth $1 million, but I'm quite certain that people would be willing to buy it and maybe put up a hotel, some kind of something that would help the city get some tax dollars out of that thing. We already own Centennial property, away we go. And let's sell the Civic Center property as well. I'm quite certain hotels would be all over that, which we need. We need more hotels that is prime real estate. So I know it's not the rec center, it would be the Civic Center, but at the same time, I think that should get relocated as well. If we can ever get that one to go. Hopefully the government comes through. That's about all I gotta say.
Thank you, Rick. Just so everyone knows the actual prices here. So looking at this the financing options here, we have the full rec hub as proposed at 1.542 million annually for 30 years. Breaking it down to 6,500 taxpayers in the community, that's $19.78 a month at those rates right now. And that's if we took on the whole thing ourselves. And I know earlier this afternoon we had people coming in and asking questions and going through what was provided for them. And one of our community members said to me, well, that averages out to a little over $200 a year. She said, that would put my taxes back to where it was in 2009. Which was an interesting statement to me. So, yeah.
I understand for the individual homeowner, we're talking $20 a month, $220 a year. What about retirement living? How many units they own? They are looking at spending big dollars in the very near future on a massive development. If our taxes get too high, you think they're still gonna be willing to do that? Also, those tax dollars get turned into rent. They can actually raise the rent for taxes, not 4%. They can bring it up to what they're being charged. That's gonna hit everybody's hip pocket. So when we have people on fixed incomes, now all of a sudden their rent is gonna go up exponentially. Plus cost of living increases in taxes, which are gonna go up. Our water bills are doubling over the next 7 years, 5 years. Let's throw that one in there. So how much more are we gonna throw on top of the citizens? I understand as one single individual, it's not a lot of money. Unless you're on a fixed income, but your apartment rent is going up. Your household rent is going up. Your property taxes are going up. Everything is going up. We need to try and maintain it as low as we possibly can, because there's also gonna be the COVID tax that's gonna come. Bet your bottom dollar on that. The HST is probably gonna go through the roof. Look at what's happening to gas. And I believe in a couple of weeks, we have the carbon tax hitting that one. So I think at this time, unless we have help, we can't afford this thing. I understand what you're saying, it's $20 a month. It's 2 trips to McDonald's, unless you're Tom. Start adding that up with everything else. We're already looking at subsidizing daycare because people can't afford it. So we're gonna subsidize their daycare to $10 a day, but now we're gonna charge them $1.50 in their taxes. So are we really benefiting anything? I get we need the recreation. I'm not disputing that in any way whatsoever. We need an arena. I think we can save our pool for more than 10 to 12 years with normal maintenance. We need a new arena. The thing was falling apart when I worked there 30 years ago. It's still falling apart.
Thank you, Rick.
So, based on those numbers and the numbers in this report, I disagree with the $19. So it says that it's gonna be $1.5 million a year for 30 years. $30 million at 3% is gonna be a lot more than $1.5 million a year. There's no way that we can only pay 50% interest on a $30 million loan over 30 years. You can venture that, and you do those calculations, they're gonna be a lot more substantial than that. You also have to look at, like you're saying, so even if you use your $19, $20 a month for a homeowner, that's if you're a minimal value homeowner. That's not if you're paying $5,000 a year tax or $10,000 a year tax, because they're gonna go up. Even if you use that number of $1.5 million a year currently, that's a 12.5% increase to your current taxation. My commercial building, I'm paying $75,000 a year in tax. So if I take a 12% hit on that, that's another 20 grand. So it's all very, very relevant when you're looking at financing it 100% internally to the taxpayer. Question I have, and I wish we had 200 or 300 people here. Should we be focusing more on building the art center and museum and putting some money into our facilities that we have? If you look at the report that we have here, over 10 years, we spent $1.5 million on our arena. It's very sad. We should be spending hundreds of thousands a year, like you say, and maintaining it and keeping them viable assets to the municipality. So if we're going to put something onto a election ballot, I would recommend that you put that question on there as well. Should we focus on what we have, a few $1 million of seed money in, focus on moving forward and getting the facilities that we've lost back up and running and maintaining what we have and keeping them going. So when we put the roof on, we were told there's a potential of 5 to 20 years. When we spend that $1 million. In order to get to 20 years, we're going to have to continue to put some money into it. So do we keep expanding on that current building and putting money into it and making it better? Or do we scrap it and then rebuild what we have with less seating, no more current seating? I have a ton of questions. There's an awful lot of stuff in this report that hasn't answered a lot of questions that I still have, so I'm sure that these members of the public still have a lot of questions. I'll leave it at that.
I believe the Art Center is a different topic altogether.
One taxpayer.
The Art Center has to happen in some fashion, and that's not what this discussion is, in my opinion.
Well, I think there's more than one taxpayer. According to our rules, it's around 6,500 taxpayers. And what the mayor was referring to when it came to the debt repayment, well, he calculated it on the total amount that the IDEA architects have put forward. And we wouldn't borrow the total amount no matter what. When you bought your first home, maybe you put 10 or 20% down, whatever you could afford, and you mortgage the rest. I think that's what the city would reasonably have to look at. And that 5, 10, 15, 20%, we would be looking to other levels of government to help us gain either through small grants or larger ones. We have an election coming up. Who knows what will happen as a result of that. But we will keep digging for grants to assist us in creating this community center, be it all 3 portions or just pool or arena and the add-on later. No matter what, dealing with some old buildings, they're going to cost us money. We have to make a decision what to do. Either every year, keep throwing money at them. Becomes a case, it's just like having an old car. You can keep fixing it. And there's people driving around with 50-year-old cars. Great. You can keep fixing it, put the money in. But then we've got to look at the numbers. Mayor used the 28 or 29 million, I think, for his numbers. They just did it, and anybody can do it on their calculator or their iPad. There's 1,000 mortgage apps. 25 million at the current going rate available in the city, which is about 2.6%. Over 30 years. Comes up to a monthly payment of $100,084 a month. That divided by 6,500 taxpayers comes up to $15.40 a month, $184.77 a year. Now, that's the average. Are some going to have to pay more and some pay less? The answer is yes. I'm giving you the best numbers so that you understand what an average is. So our taxes, every time I hear our taxes are high enough as is, I really have to shake my head, because when you compare us with the rest of the province, and I showed Rick earlier, Here's a list of 35 municipalities in the province. The rates they pay in taxes and how much they pay in taxes. Okay, and I put LA Lake at the bottom. The lowest ones on here are Windsor, $2,968 a year, average taxes. LA Lake, $1,891 a year. Around $1,100 a year difference. Folks, we're trying to explain to people who want to know why we can't have this, why we can't have that. It's simple. You can have anything you want. Anything. Just got to be willing to pay for it. So you can't turn around and say, I want it, but I won't pay for it. Doesn't work. That goes from potholes to sewer breaks to community centers, art centers. How many firemen you want? City delivers somewhere in the neighborhood, my last count was around 140 different services to you every day of the week. Flush your toilet lately? Turn the tap on? See a street light out there? Did you drive here? Take the bus? Yep. That's where your tax money is going. And what council has to do, I don't think it's a wonderful position to be in. Council has to make a decision. Take on some kind of debt, which will result in 15, 18, $20 a month increase in taxes in order to make it happen. Or just say, forget it, it's so much easier. Just wash your hands of it, dump it on the next council, leave it to them, and we can yap about it for another 4 years. Or show a little guts and determination, study this, try to make this decision. Say, it's just an arena. Here's a walking track, scrap that, use this. What are we going to do? That's where I'm hoping council will make a decision in the next week on how to move on this. But when it's over, certainly would hope we get something worthwhile and long lasting. I don't know where the vote will go, but it's an election year. We've been dealing with tax increases over the last years that have been less than the inflation rate, less than the cost of living. Means we're going backwards. We can't keep doing this. Okay. One day, you're going to say, why can't we get the potholes filled? The answer is, we got no money. The reason is, we're not putting enough into the pot. Take her away, Dave.
I just have a question.
Okay.
I was waiting till you were done.
I'm done. Thank you.
I might be a little naive, but maybe I'm not. But what is a walking track? I know what is a walking track. And it would be nice. But who uses a walking track in town? Only because we don't have one, obviously, right? So we've made a walking track in here. It's a walking program.
Yeah, agree with you.
Have you been here for walking for day walks?
I've seen
2 people. 3 maybe. I was here Tuesday, and I've been here many times working in the building. Never more than 5 people.
I've never.
Maybe a walking track would entice a better environment for that. I don't know. My point is, one thing, like I said earlier, put it on the ballot, on the election ballot, because it's not going to get decided before it's over, obviously, whether and what route we should take, and put a true percentage on what the tax rate, if we go this alone, like council may be suggesting, put a true number on what it's gonna cost the individual. Not only residential, but like Council Patrick said, on the commercial side, those are big numbers. Yearly, not just once, yearly. It would be beautiful, I said this at the beginning, I would love to have a hub when it first came out, when we got it funded for $30-some million, everybody was ecstatic. And it fell through. It's fallen through too many times. Like you had said earlier, we need to move on, and I don't see the funding formula working. I said it earlier, I don't think we should be doing this alone, even a standalone arena. I believe if we rehash that out, have smaller ask, we would get money from that, 2 to 3 million. I'll leave it help Steve write up the report. But the walking track, okay, so yes, we will like visit, but most of the time we do it myself. There's 3 people here doing it. If anybody else wants to come up, thank you.
Hello, my name is Margaret Dean, and I'm a longtime Elliott Laker. I've even been here longer than the Burnett brothers. And, I've enjoyed the recreation here for 60 years. And I can't speak to the arena. I know how popular the arena is and that we need to have one because many people, whether they're involved in skating or hockey, they are great fans. I can't speak to the arena, and I guess I should say first that I really appreciate this report from Dan Gagnon, our CAO, and also this information from the architect. I was really surprised to learn tonight that the pool could be repaired for $3 million, and I didn't know that before. I was always told and got the impression maybe that it was finished, and that's not true. So I am thinking, let's, repair it, refurbish it if the structure is still solid. I've been using that pool since the day, the day it opened. I was a lifeguard there, and I've enjoyed it ever since. I was away about 30 years doing my career, and I came back to Elliott Lake to retire because of the pool, the cross-country ski trails, the hiking trails, just the great small town atmosphere that's here. So I really want to see things go forward, but I'm really concerned that we'll make a decision too quickly. I like what you've done tonight. The information is excellent. I'm very interested to hear more about the financial end of it. And I think we have to do now is continue this sort of thing and not make a decision right away. There's more information that's needed, I feel. For example, I'd like to see a nice cost benefit analysis with what would it be like if we now do the pool separately from the arena. All of these different scenarios, I'd like to see a cost benefit analysis done and then make the decision. I think these town hall meetings are fantastic. We have a lot of very knowledgeable people in the city, some that have lived here forever and some that have lived other places and seen a lot of other things. And when you get that type of input, it really is fantastic and you come out with a better decision. So I'm for all continuing perhaps a bit more. You folks know how to go about and do that type of cost analysis of the different scenarios. And that's what I'm hoping to see before we make a big decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee.
Good evening. My name is Steve Calverley, and I'm a 4+ year resident of Elliott Lake, so a relative newcomer. And if I sound a little nervous, I am. Don't like speaking in a microphone, but I don't think anybody's really enjoyed that either. There have been some suggestions that this should be a ballot question, and I may be mistaken, but I believe that we have already passed the window where the municipality would have to inform the province of a question on the next election. So that's not possible in our next election. And I was here this afternoon for a while, and Steve answered a lot of questions for me and walked me through this over here. And so I made some notes for myself. And so that's part of this. And then also my notes are getting a little bit changed, and some of my ideas are being tempered by different things that I'm hearing. So yes, this is really helpful that we have these. I agree. One of the things that we haven't talked about is the benefit that this can have for marketing our community. We keep talking rightly so about taxes and taxes and taxes, but there's a different way to do this. We can attract more tax base. So it's not just always squeezing this thing tighter and tighter and tighter. It's marketing our community, bringing more people in so that we increase our tax base that way. And I believe that something of this type, and yes, it could also be something where the present pool is utilized, but I think something where we can go ahead as a community where when people come in and they look at Elliott Lake and they're coming here typically from Southern Ontario, and if we're going to attract developers here, they are going to be selling properties at significantly higher price than many of us have paid when we came purchased in just recent years or further back. Those people are going to have to come and spend a lot more money, but what they will be getting will be brand new accommodation, and could be very nice. I'm very happy with our accommodation, but some of the new things that will be developed will be very attractive. Now, if they're coming to a city to drop, let's say, $400,000 or whatever, if they're coming to drop that, they're going to want some amenities. And if they don't see those amenities, and the amenities look, tired and shabby, it's not going to attract those people so that we can build our tax base. So I think that aside from the facilities that we need for ourselves and for our children and for the future, because our facilities that we have right now are going to continue to age. This is only going to become more dire. But we need to replace those with things that will attract more people to our communities so that we can grow that tax base. I said that about 3 times now. Sorry. I just want to look at a couple of things here quickly. The location at 151 Ontario. I would like to know more about that slope in the property. I think those are excellent questions. I would imagine that engineering firm Tulloch has got that under their belt, but I've heard Councillor Patry ask that question a couple of times now, I think over the past couple of years, and I haven't heard the answer myself, so that's a good question. We need to know the answer to that. What my hope would be that we could develop something on that location. The issue of the slope and rock aside, it is a very prominent location. When people come into, tour Elliott Lake and have a look at our town, that's going to be right there. Whatever is going to be there is going to be front and center. The jewel in the wilderness, well, maybe that's the jewel in the jewel in the wilderness right there. And so if we have something there that looks attractive, so I'm leaning away from the tent structure, definitely. And towards something that looks good, so people go, wow, that looks really decent. Because when I came up here with my wife 5 years ago to look at it, and we drove through some towns that I'm not going to mention any names because I'm not going to talk down anyone else's town. But we drove through some towns that I'm sorry, she was getting so discouraged that I thought I wasn't even sure if it was going to get her here. And but when we got here, looked around, saw what was here, how beautiful this place is, that began to turn things around. So I think we want something that will attract more people, grow that tax base. And the other thing that's another benefit we haven't talked about is we've had a horrible 2 years for so many reasons related to COVID. It's been awful. If we could do something together that would be really, a thing of beauty for the future, something that our community could enjoy, something that we've built together, and something that's right for us, not something where we've gone and thrown money around like candy at the Santa Claus parade, but we have done the proper job to come up with a good facility, an attractive facility. We haven't wasted money, but we also haven't cheaped out. Because as Councillor Turner was saying, we can keep repairing our cars and repairing our cars and repairing our cars. And after a while, it's probably better to go out and get that new one. You know what? You get that new one, you get in, you want to go for a drive. When you got the old car in your driveway, you don't feel that way. So I think new facilities are going to attract more use, and it would be something that we could do together. There's an expression that says that success cures a lot of ills. We have a lot of ills. It's been really tough, and I think that the success on this one before council ends this term would be in the best interest of our city. Thank you. 3 years ago, I went to the mayor's levy, and one of the things that I wanted to say there that I want to say here, because there are people who have been here for a long time, those of us who are new, deeply appreciate what you have done to keep the city here before we got here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really didn't want to get up and speak, but I just had a couple of comments, and what triggered me to speak was Tom's comments about taxation, which I respect and understand that our community does. We're very lucky with the tax rates that we do pay. But at the same time, last I looked, our average annual income levels were the lowest in the province. So I do hope that council considers that when making their decisions. Beyond that, I sat on the council that initiated this project. I know and appreciate how much work has gone into it, endless studies, constant consultation with the community. I hope that everybody in the community does recognize that, because that is a fact. I don't envy this council being in the position of making this decision on the tail of the pandemic, with the changes to our economy. That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you, Tammy.
Is that better this time? That good? Hi, everybody, it's Mike Thomas again. And I haven't been able to do this once in 2 years. And if everybody recalls, I sat at a council meeting and said to everybody I was scared to death to get something from Ed Pierce because I had a weak immune system. That's still true. So I envy the rest of you. I'm happy to see that you're here. I do have a few things to say, but I gotta thank Stephen, Dave, and Rick, and Tammy, and Tom for taking most of the things I wanted to say. But it's great to hear that everybody thinks alike, or not the same, but we all share the common concerns.
And for Dave and Rick, I've been coming up here since '89. I didn't get the pleasure of meeting you then. And I always asked everybody what the attraction was to Elliott Lake. For those of us that weren't born here, the attraction is everybody in this community treats you like you're a member of the same community. That's what I found since I moved up and retired here. And I was part of the conversation in 2018 that we discussed this at length. We did polls, we did social media things. There was a lot of back and forth of pro and against. And in 2018, I checked this figure with Mr. Gagnon today. We decided that 50% of the population of Elliott Lake hadn't been here more than 5 years in 2018. That was it wasn't an exact scientific thing, but it was something we had to consider. In today's numbers, the percentage of population that enjoys and is taxpayers of Elliott Lake that are not from here in terms of what most people would look at is probably north of 60% of your tax base are new residents that have decided to make Elliott Lake their future, their end story. They are taxpayers. As a matter of fact, they're the majority of the taxpayers. When I have an opinion, and I apologize for this being in no certain order, but I haven't done this in a while. I'm happy to see that there's a real estate agent, membership of the Ski Hill, a vendor in town that knows that what I'm saying is true because he sees the customer base every day that sells furniture in our town. Members of council that have spent their whole life here. One that's come back after being in the military. A 50-year build is something you talk about that you did when you were young. And I understand why you would want to be conservative to spend money in your town. I'm basically a diehard conservative by nature, but I believe in social well-being. And I think these fellas and the gentlemen and ladies in the audience tonight have all demonstrated a mutual concern for that. We all might disagree on how we're going to get there. But the goal is to get there and make this a better place. And that's going to cost money, like Councilor Turner said. We can have anything we want. We all chose to be here. We have to decide to stop fighting about it and get something done. When we talked about it in 2018, the federal government, the province had promised us money. That ended. Okay. Well, there was a comment made about we need to attract more industry. The mines never left. The jobs did. The guys that made $1,100 a week in 1990 don't make $1,100 a week anymore. The biggest taxpayer in the city of Elliott Lake is still here. If you want to go after what would be required to do what Dave and Rick were talking about, is you would ask the biggest taxpayer to pay their fair share. And the rest of the taxpayers in the town wouldn't have to be brought up to the level we're all afraid of, that we're being stretched to the max. So in my mind, a 50-year build, the conventional building is the way to go because we all saw the math. The difference in price between a fancy tent and a brick and mortar building is about the equivalence of a groomer and a dump truck. And we spent that, I don't know, just offhand once or twice in 2 winters. Now, as far as speaking for the community, I probably don't have a lot of credit with most of you. But I get asked questions no different than the rest of you every day. My wife and I go into town. I get 100 emails a week. I get half a dozen phone calls a day. Mike, please say this. And I had a fellow text me while we're sitting here. We're talking about a $30 million enterprise. And he said, geez, 14 people are watching. Well, they're going to watch this over and over and over again. Stephen brought up a great point. It was one of my notes, so thank you for saying that, Stephen, but I have to read it anyway. Without this facility, our ability to attract people, customers, visitors, and investors remains the same, stagnant. We are at the threshold of capacity. We are at the threshold of expense. And I urge this council, on behalf of everybody that's been here less than 7 years, that are now approaching, what is it, Tammy, the average household, 220 to buy a home? Okay, so when I first moved here, I could have bought my place for 45 grand. Before me, they were giving them away. And that'll happen again. But right now, my neighbor's house was just gonna be listed for over 200 something. No different than mine. So we're building revenue from people coming in to buy. But like Stephen said, we've been trying to do this for years, and we haven't built anything for them to stay here for. So the people that are here, that are from here, have a reason to stay here until they're grown. If we want to keep attracting buyers from Toronto or from other parts in Southern Ontario, and the banter going around is the target price for a house in Elliott Lake is going to be $350,000 to start. I just looked. I can buy a piece of land in either West Nipissing or North Bay for 80 grand. And I can build the house of my dreams for about that much money. It'd be a lot closer to the amenities that Stephen was concerned about for that coin. What's that going to do to our real estate agents, our furniture salesmen, our ski hill activity, or all of our hockey players? If we don't match what we're going to price ourselves out of the market for, then we're wasting our time. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. The one person who's asked me the hardest question since I lived here, since I've been coming here for work, my whole life that I spent coming here, my wife asked me the most difficult question that I've ever heard. And she's a very efficient person, if any of you have met her, when it comes to thinking and questions. She's not big for words like she says I am, but she's right. She said, honey, it's not that long before you and I are in our 70s. And if things are the same as they are now, when we reach that age, we shouldn't be here. She loves it here. I love it here. You all love it here. We all know what the problems are here. And as much as we have reason to be against this project, we have 6,500 people to think about as to why we should be for it. This isn't about a percentage of our community. It isn't about a demographic that has more sway or more ownership or more voice. This project is for the entire community of Elliott Lake, old and new, as we had somebody from an international forum come here and say, this is an 8 and 80 plan, right, Dan? And we brought them here. We brought people from all over the country to invest in Elliott Lake. When the mines left, they saved the town, literally, with their cash. I think the least we could do is build something that they can say they made the right decision, and they'll tell their children and their grandchildren and their friends and their family members that investing in Elliott Lake was the best thing they've ever done. Thank you.
A lot of deep comments this evening. A lot of people really thinking about this.
Can I say something?
Yes, for sure.
I'm not going to go that far. I think you can all hear me. I'm probably one of the older ones here from Elliott Lake. We've been here since 75. I was here when the pool opened, and as council will know, I'm a very strong opponent for the pool. The arena, yes, I agree, it's very important, but it's not important to me, but it is to a lot of other people. I think we've got to do the best for the community for both sports. It's really important. I think listening to what we were told tonight, I would like the idea possibly, and I'm chairman of the Parks Committee, I haven't talked this over with them. I would suggest you strongly look at the arena, get the building done for the arena, but get the building done right. Get in it what is needed, build it properly. No shortcuts, which happens so often in the builds. If you could do that and get that one sorted out, whilst working on that, work on a big renovation to the pool. Update the pool, the inside. The change rooms are tiny. They're not conducive to parents working together with their children. There's no family change rooms there. Change the interior. I know Steve has been working with a gentleman from Toronto that works with renovations to pools. Get onto Tim, see what we can do to update the pool. Let's make this work and let's get on with it. I was on Parks when we had the first original plans. That's over 10 years ago. And I've been on Parks again another 10 years since then. And we just seem to be going around in circles. We're not getting anywhere. Get off the pot. Don't let it boil over. Get on with the job. And I know that you've got an election coming up. Maybe between you and the new councillors, let's get this job done. It's really needed.
Thank you. I agree. We've got to get off the pot. This has been years and years coming. As Tammy mentioned, she was on the hub committee when we were looking at this back in the day. What's really, really frustrating, as I mentioned, we had a price for the whole Taj Mahal that had a curling club in it and a massive multi-use gymnasium, all the social spaces. And we had to cut those things out to bring costs down, and here we are, a few years later, those costs are back up. So we've seen almost 100% increase in the cost to build in 6 years. That's insane. I'm extremely concerned. Being born and raised here, loving the facilities, I'm concerned we're going to be in 6 years. If we don't do something now, if our council doesn't push forward now, even with the phased-in build, come 6 years from now, we won't be able to afford to build an arena at this rate of inflation. And I'm telling you, I love my construction jobs. I go to the rolling our soup mill on a regular basis throughout the season for building things, and when you see a 2x4 go from $250 a 2x4 to $9 a 2x4 in a matter of 2 seasons, and it continues to rise, exactly. A sheet of plywood going from $40 to $98. This is what we have to deal with. I'm talking individual pieces. Where are we going to be in the next few years? And this is why, I love bringing the community together. It sucks, absolutely sucks. And we spent 2 years not being able to see faces and being able to talk to each other. I'm glad Dave pulled the community together at the ski hill a few weeks back, because it kind of showed me again that, you know what, it's phasing out. We can come together. We can have these conversations. There's more future conversations we need to have, because Chris, Tom, myself, and other members of the council, we're still just people. We're individuals in the community. We're not way up on some pedestal. We're not geniuses. We don't have all the answers. We try to work together to do what's best for the overall community. When it comes down to it, we're individual taxpayers too. We need to rely on each other and get the input of each other to make the right decisions. Now, we're not always going to agree on everything 100%, but we need to know we're going to move together. So if we need to look at a phased-in approach, I don't think we can just can the whole thing. We need to start phasing in. Personally, extremely worried about the arena. We know that we can pull some life on the pool. But again, Steve made some interesting points. This isn't just recreation and health for the people that are here. We're trying to attract people all the time. Our community, for the first time in 3 decades, the population has gone up. And that was rising before the pandemic. I sit on the retirement living board. I know what the stats were. We've been planning a new build since 2018. And that was before the pandemic, and there's a lot of work going into that. It's economic development. Again, it's not just our own social well-being, it's not just our own health and wellness, and it's not just recreation in the community, it's economic development. If you don't invest in your own business, your own business is gonna collapse on itself. Anybody knows that. If Chris didn't put money into beautifying the store, bringing in new products, the store wouldn't continue to have sales and growth. If Seidel didn't reface the building once in a while and come up with new gimmicks, you wouldn't see the traffic it sees all the time. We need to do that as a municipality also. We need to continue to invest in ourselves, and it's not just putting Band-Aids on our facilities over and over and over. I no longer believe these structural engineers and the building condition reports because I've seen them. At the very bottom of the page, we spent $30,000 per building condition assessment, and at the very bottom of the page it says, this is valid as of today. It's not valid tomorrow. You're protecting your own ass, I'm sorry. You're not protecting my community. The city spends $250,000 fixing what was a priority on the civic center. So 3 months later, the roof could cave in. That concerns me. So when I start looking at other facilities in our community, we need to step up the game. And yeah, it's going to cost, but that cost is going to continue to attract professionals, continue to attract outside investment, new developments, and that new development, whether it's housing, whether it's buildings, whether it's new businesses, is going to decrease that tax base again. But we have to step up to the plate. We need to do it together. And again, that's why I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate all the comments. Realistically, my council in 1 week from today has to make a choice because we're going back to the province again. We do have those delegations and we need to give them answers. We might get lip service once again. We might get false promises, but we need to continue to change with the times and continue answering to the province, answering to the federal government. Right now, we have little pots. You know, we can pull those pots together and make it good for our community. Sorry. Yeah, Cheryl?
Yes, thank you. So I'm probably the newest resident in your community. I've only been here since January. My name is Cheryl Fort, and I am your Ontario PC candidate, and that's not why I'm speaking right now. I'm actually going to put on my mayor's hat and talk about asset management. I think it would be imperative to do a phased approach. You have a cool facility that could be revamped, refurbished, and it sounds like we have users here that are liking that idea. But when you look into the long term of your asset management, it might be a great place to be in 15, 20 years when you're looking at replacing a pool and make a plan today where you build an arena, which it sounds like it's imperative that it's needed, that you have a plan that's there that could be phased in 20 years where you have a brand new facility added to it, which may at that time have dollars pockets available that could revamp part of that arena that will be needing upgrades at that time too. To think that it'll go 30 years without any upgrades is, well, the digital age, everything's changing all the time, so there might be other upgrades that you'll want into the future that we don't even know of yet. So when I was listening tonight, I think it's great. I do think Elliott Lake isn't a beautiful community to move to. I've been door knocking and talking to people, so yeah, I'm amazed at how many new people there are in the community. I didn't realize it was as high as 60%, so thank you for those numbers. But that would be my thoughts tonight, just listening, is that when you're trying to manage your assets into the future, it might be beneficial to do a phased-in approach and then look into the future of having a really nice facility, in addition of a pool onto an arena facility that you build in the next couple of years. And then maybe too, the different building techniques and that will change into the future. We don't know. So it might be a good phased-in approach. And I just want to thank you for the time to talk tonight.
Hello again. I agree with what Ms. Fort just finished saying as well, as I was alluding to. You said, Mayor Dan, you said you were going to, within the next week, have to make a hard decision. Is there annual meetings or something coming up that we have to go to?
Over in the next 2 weeks.
What's it called, sorry?
ORGA.
Oregon.
Ontario Good Roads.
Ontario Good Roads, okay. So it's infrastructure funding, basically, to some degree. So again, like you said, it sounds like it's a little bit time sensitive, so I don't know if it's ever been asked in the discussions where, like you said, you got lip service saying this, that, and everything from different, at this point in time, on PC government. Maybe like you said right at the beginning, that was the first one up, just bring it, scale it down, phase-in approach. Arena's $14-15 million, see what appetite that is. And they might bite on that a little bit better and do it in a little bit of a stage. Like I said at the beginning, how would be great all in one shot, but it's a big thing. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's fair that LA Lake should have to do this alone without funding. Other communities have gotten all kinds of funding, and we've got nothing so far. So fight that fight, and we need some funding from the government. And if we've asked for, $450 million, we scaled it back to 35, 30. We're still kind of getting back and forth. Cut it back to half. Let's just put a scenario together. We put a phase-in approach, whether it's at the mall property or down the arena. You build your arena first, but don't put the lobby in the front. Put the lobby in the back, because you want to keep going to the ball field, correct? Makes sense.
Thank you, Dave. Again, that's why we want to bring everyone together and want to get comments. We had quite a few people come through this afternoon with comments also, because you're right. We've been told to scale it back. We've been giving lip service. How many years ago was it? 2009. When it was promised, that was pulled back. Back in 2018, we were approved for $14.7 million. Within months, that was pulled back. And that's frustrating because you're planning and moving ahead. All the people have been told again, scale back. And you're absolutely right. I keep fighting that fight. And it's, to me, it doesn't seem fair that we're not wearing the right color shirt so we don't get attention. And with some of the ministers, you get to know who they are, and there's a cabinet show. So you have that also going on also. So, working with Monty McNaughton as the minister, what a great guy. He was raising blind herd, believe it or not. Went to Laurentian, has a family the same age as mine. Bob and Tom, a Slipknot fan. Who would have thought? You have all these great things, and you build a rapport and build a relationship, and then you shift out into another seat. You have someone else, and you get to know them again, going to conference after conference. You get a rapport. You get a little bit of what I'm going to say is lip service, and they get shuffled again. So our council has been fighting this fight for years, and we have a Conservative Party candidate right there. This is the frustrating part. Do we understand where the North really is? I remember we had Premier Wind come here. And the only reason she came here is because I made a total jackass of myself in Toronto. Trying to get attention for Elliott Lake. I cracked a joke and she started laughing and said, "Who the hell are you?" You need to come to Elliott Lake. You're welcome anytime. And within 2 weeks, we get a phone call that she's coming. She ended up coming here 3 times, and we ended up going to visit her 3 times. I'm not going to say I'm a red shirt, a blue shirt, an orange shirt. I love people for the people they are. Sometimes put politics aside. It's good people who are in the seat. A lot of people weren't big fans of Premier Wind. I got to know her on a personal level as a person, not as the Premier. And I think that was the important part, because you start realizing, I said, we're all just people. And that was one of the things she said, we said, "Man, it's hard having broad shoulders all the time. I'm just a person with feelings. And I don't have all the right answers. I'm trying to fix things that have been broken for 30 years. And every time I put forward an answer, I'm trying to look tough. I get kicked down again. And I don't have the right answer. And sometimes you have to rely on the people around you. Work together and find that answer. And I think that was very important. But she tried to help our community on her way. And we've gone through this. And now we're being told, you know what? Scale back a bit, come and talk to us. We're not FaceTime with the Minister of Infrastructure, the Minister of Sports and Tourism once again. It's constantly different people, so they're giving you different expectations, they're giving you different things that you have to line up with. My council thing We give it this hard decision again, and we don't want to do it without the wind. Because we know what we need. We have a report that gives us kind of a time frame, so that's a big question. Do we phase it in? We're still saying we're building the whole hub, but building the whole hub could be 15, 20 years. So where do we start and how do we get there? Because if we go and ask for $14 million for marina and phase that in, there might be 2 million, it might be 5 million, it might be 7 million. 5 years from now, we can go back and there might be other pockets of funding. There might be larger funding, there might be more little tiny pockets, and we can do that next step. But we have to do something because, right, we've been talking about this for 13, 14 years now. And things haven't gotten any better. We keep putting money into the Pinto, and the Pinto is not turning into a Mustang. We gotta make those choices. They're electric. All right. Rick.
So you were saying like you guys gotta make a decision before you go, like, are you making a decision on what you're building before you go? Or what? Okay, so we got conventional builds, we got the tent, which you throw that thing out. Then you've got 2 prefabricated buildings, and they're saying you got a 50-year lifespan. I will guarantee you, you will not get 50 years on those roofs. You'll get 30 years, like everything else. So if that's a factor in your, I've been in construction a very long time. We've owned Butler buildings. They don't last 50 years. Not a chance. You're gonna get 30 years out of it. So you change the roof on all 3 of them. So if you guys are gonna be looking at cost comparison for future maintenance and everything else, these are all things, they'll tell you 50 years, you're not getting that. So you better plan on roofing all of them 25 to 30 years. So but this is what I wanna know. Is this the decision you're making in the next week or two, that what you're gonna build and how you're gonna do it?
Yeah, we don't even know if we'll be able to meet the minister in Toronto, but we know they'll be around, and there is definitely a confirmed support towards culture. We need to paint the foreign government picture, and we would like to have some comfort in how we paint that picture. You know, is it the hub? Is it the phase? What is it? And if we don't get some direction from the community and from council, we're winging it, and that's not where you want to be. And we suspect that the government might be listening as well. So it might be a good opportunity. And we're overdue to be having this conversation. And I'm gonna put my staff hat on is time is money. We need the staff needs direction, so we're not we're focusing on it so that we can maximize the staff time, consultant time. We're winding down with Franco, that's not essentially at the time, but we need focus, we need direction, and we need to take a picture of the province. And we can't do that if we don't get direction from council. And they don't want to give us a direction without hearing from the public. As unsophisticated as it is, it's better than nothing. And so if we can at least get a glimmer, some focus, we can go to Toronto, argue with some of that in our back pocket. It doesn't mean council can't change its mind 6 months from now, or the election may change things, who knows, but we need some direction sooner rather than later, so that we can have more comfortable conversations. Or whatever, and anyone who's listening, we're not having that's up to the but they're just a little farther reach.
Yeah. So this time that they tell you you got the money, get the check before the election.
Okay, is there any other comments? Time to put it to bed for this evening. I'm very, very thankful to all of you once again, very thankful to,
If anyone does have any comments to make, as Dan said, edo@elliotlake.ca, cao@elliotlake.ca. There's a comment box at the back with some comments if someone wants to write anything.
yeah, thank you everyone for being here this evening, and big thank you to members of council that have been able to be here, and our staff for the amount of work they put into putting this together. I hope a lot of people watch this at home or will watch it at home. And again, we've got a week of being able to contact CEO, EDO, and give us your input, give us your thoughts, and be part of this decision for us. Thank you.
Also, thank you for putting this together in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.